Right. Welcome back, everyone. I think we're going to make a start. So I'm just here to remind you to use Slido. You may have been reminded to use Slido once or twice before today, but it is really important. Firstly, for the engagement with the speakers. Hopefully we'll have time for a couple of questions at the end of this session, but also to rate the session afterwards, which helps us to build better programs for future REBA conferences as well. But without further ado, I want to introduce Marcus Reed, who's going to start to talk to us about the benefits of financial coaching. Marcus.
Thank you very much, Jake. Good afternoon, everybody. A massive thank you, first and foremost, for joining us today. I'll just let these ladies come in at the end. As Jake's already said, my name's Marcus Reed. I'm one of the directors of Workplace Financial Wellbeing here at TrinityBridge. Yes, TrinityBridge. I'll come on to that in a second. And today really is all about giving you the opportunity to find out a little bit more about our brand new research. We do a lot of research. This particular one is in and around financial coaching. Now, coaches, we see people use coaches in every single way of life nowadays. If you need some physical support in for an event or just to get physically fit, then we call upon our coaches nowadays. In our social well-being, we look for coaches to support us in being better at life and managing our way through lives. And of course, with mental well-being, we call upon coaches when things are going wrong and we need support. It's no different with financial coaching. We've certainly seen in our space a rise in the interest in financial coaching. It's already very big in the US. Not so big in the UK. So part of the research that we're launching today, if you haven't already seen it, is designed to really kind of raise a bit more of awareness around that particular piece and potentially the gap that it might fill between general financial education and formal financial advice. So that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. I mentioned TrinityBridge. If you weren't already aware, if you hadn't heard of the name TrinityBridge, up until a couple of months ago, we were known as Close Brothers Asset Management. We have been delivering financial well-being services for well over 55 years, but of late, we are now known as TrinityBridge. So we were sold by Close Brothers Group a little while ago, and that was formalised a couple of 3 months ago. So we're now under new ownership, ploughing our own furrow and trying to continue the good work that we've already done to improve financial well-being in the workplace. So yes, we are the same firm, we are the same people delivering the same services. So if you do see TrinityBridge and you hadn't already been familiar with it, you'll know that we are one and the same, Close Brothers Asset Management, as was. So the research then, as I've alluded to already, we've seen a rise in the kind of acknowledgement that financial coaching services is out there. We do a lot of research. So formally as Close Brothers Asset Management, we tend to bring out research every year. Obviously honoured to be able to launch it at REBA this year, our latest one. And we went out to just over 1,200 employees who work for companies employing 200 or more. And the opportunity that we had there was to really get to understand from an employee perspective what they feel about financial coaching, whether they use it, whether they don't use it, and likewise, depending on whether they use it or not, how they feel about it. So that's what we're here to talk about today. As you can see from the slide, 16% of those employees were 200 to 499 employees. Same again for 500 to 999. And predominantly, as it went, 68% were over 1,000 employees. We didn't want to just go to one particular part of the industry, though. We wanted to go across all sectors. So as you can see from the pie chart on the right-hand side, we tried to get as much input from various different sectors as we possibly could. Interestingly, and most importantly, obviously, that is the research. If you haven't already got it, as it says on the top right there, do come along and see us on stand 21. My colleague Fred and I will be delighted to answer any questions. We'll hopefully have some time at the end for questions today. But ultimately, if we do run out, then you know where to find us. So before I go on to some of the results of the research, we're also very, very well, I have lots of conversations with employers almost on a daily basis. Not everybody knows what financial coaching is. So I thought I'd just spend a couple of minutes just to position that for you to help you to understand where it fits in that kind of wider financial well-being offering that employers might put in. So if you look at the left-hand side of that slide, you'll see that it starts with financial education. So as an employer, you're able to implement a financial education program, however you do it, and whoever you do it with, but it's designed as a catch-all, effectively. So it's designed to reach out to the masses, to everybody in the workplace, and try and provide a bit of quality information to raise financial awareness, to try and improve a bit of financial literacy, to help those individuals understand their employee benefits and what they get from you as an employer, and then ultimately use that information to try and make some change, make some important decisions going forward. In terms of who implements that, obviously that's the individual who selects to come along and take that financial education. The employer obviously can put it in for their people, but ultimately anyone can provide that, and it's unregulated. So that kind of catches everybody. So then what do you do next? Well, up until recently, that would probably be something called financial guidance. So that typically is an ad hoc service, in my opinion. So that's a one-to-one level of support, but it tends to be kind of on demand. It's not formalised, it's not structured in any way, but ultimately what it does is it allows that employee to be able to get that extra level of support. So they've interfaced with that financial education. Now they want to sit down with somebody and get one-to-one help to be able to make them fashion their own financial plans for them and their families. But it is information still, and it is information only, but it's ultimately trying to give them the signposts that they need to be able to go away and make some decisions. Again, it's individually implemented. Anyone can provide that level of financial guidance, and it's unregulated. Now, where financial coaching sits is essentially guidance, but for another name. But what it actually does is it provides structured support. So like another coach, let's use a physical coach in that example that I used earlier. I want a series of meetings or a series of sessions with my financial coach, and they will allow me to understand my own benefits. They'll allow me to understand my own plans and objectives for me and my family, and hopefully over that series of events, allow me to make some key decisions, help me to formulate a financial plan, and hopefully get me to where I need to be. And much like a health check, at the end of that series of events, they can then go off and try and implement some of those changes, and then maybe revisit that coaching service in 1, 2, 3, 4 years' time to see whether they're getting on track, whether they're still on track, and whether they're on track to get what they want from it. Again, another difference with financial coaching is that it provides some form of output. So there's checks and accountability so that they can actually ensure that they can take that away with them, put it on their fridge or whatever they do with it, and try and make sure that they continue to implement that plan. Now that, in our opinion, is where financial coaching sits, because the next one on the right-hand side is where you get into formal advice. And I've already had many conversations this morning about formal financial advice. It's really hard to get for the masses nowadays. With changes in legislation and various other things, actually, to be able to get formal financial advice is quite tricky. The perception is, I need to have a lot of money to be able to go and get formal financial advice, and that tends to be the case. So where coaching, or where we see coaching fit, is actually in that kind of gap between the general financial education, the kind of ad hoc guidance, and formal financial advice. So hopefully that makes sense, and hopefully that kind of positions where it sits. How that works in practice, and I've alluded to this already, so I won't dwell upon it. As you can see on the left-hand side of that kind of tapering funnel, that's where you can throw financial education at everybody to raise awareness. There will be, typically from our experience, a smaller cohort of your people that will want to get that kind of financial guidance coaching piece, and then a much smaller cohort will want the actual formal financial advice. That's how it works in practice. So that's financial coaching, how it sits in financial wellbeing. What does the current UK workplace look like? So we used a couple of sources, but it says there only 12% of employers currently offer a financial coaching service. So only about 1 in 10 employers in the UK provide access to financial coaching. About 15% offer access to financial advice, whether that's through a pension provider, whether it's through an advice firm or whoever it may be. But interestingly, at the bottom, 43% of organisations plan to add financial coaching to their financial wellbeing proposition, if you like, their offering going forward, which is really interesting to me. Likewise, 35% of organisations plan to increase financial wellbeing spend in the coming years. And that's really important because budgets are tight. We know with the conversations we have with employers, there's lots of strain on the budgets and everything else, but it clearly is on the agenda, on their own roadmap to try and improve that, the message that they give to their people. So that's where it sits, and that's obviously the current UK marketplace. So now we're just going to delve into some of the stats that you'll be able to find in the actual coaching service research that you can pick up from us. On the left-hand side, as I've alluded to already, not that many people use it. So as it stands, 14% of the people we surveyed have actually used a financial coaching service, 8% via their workplace, 6% via themselves, i.e. arranging it themselves. You can access financial coaching in the UK yourself. There are providers of it out there, kind of B2C. Some banks and building societies provide access to it. As long as you've got accounts with them, you can access kind of financial coaching. But likewise, there are some employers, as we alluded to already, who have actually provide access to it. When it comes to ages, probably no surprise. Predominantly, the younger workforce have used financial coaching up until now. Interestingly, on both of these tables, only 5% of over 55s have either used a financial coaching service who have not already used it but want to use it. And that kind of lends itself, in my opinion, our opinion, to potentially that particular cohort wanting to go straight to that kind of formal advice so that they can get their retirement plans or whatever it is in place. Predominantly males to females that have already used it, and very interestingly, quite a significant amount of what I would consider to be quite high earners have used it, and we'll come back to that stat in a little while. For those that haven't used the service, 28% of employees said they would like to if it was available via their workplace. However, when we look at the raw data behind that, that's very much dependent on who's going to fund it, as you'd imagine. If the employer's paying for it, that take-up's going to be much higher. Obviously, if the employee's paying for it, it's going to be much lower. So just bear that in mind. And again, predominantly that kind of younger workforce, that early to mid-career piece. This side of the fence, though, more females than males were keen to explore it. And again, a pretty broad spread in terms of earnings when it comes to those that would want to access it. So that's where we start in terms of who wants it and who already uses it. So what were the key triggers then for those individuals that have actually used financial coaching? What were the key triggers for them to use it? Boosting financial confidence. So this isn't, the natural assumption is that it's all about debt and loans and that kind of thing. It's not. Our research has shown us actually it's about trying to do things better. People want to use a financial coach to do things better. So that's things like boosting their confidence, boosting their knowledge, boosting their ability to actually enable change, improving their money management skills. So getting a better relationship with money is what they're keen to do. That's the key trigger, some of the key triggers for them to access this service. As a check and balance. So a lot of people wanted to actually use a financial coach to be able to ensure that what they're doing is the right thing before they make a key decision. Am I doing the right thing or am I not? Obviously, but not advice. Check in to make sure that their finances are on track. Some, yes, about 1 in 4 to help with a financial problem, and about 1 in 5 to change their behaviours with money. And again, we'll come back to that one as well. And then 17% said that they would use it, or they've used it, through a lifestyle change, whether that's having a baby, planning to get a mortgage, marriage, divorce, those types of things. So again, lots of different reasons why an individual would want to kind of get involved with financial coaching, but not necessarily the obvious or the assumptive reasons for it. Just taking that one step further, in terms of the key issues that the research showed that people wanted to talk about when it comes to financial coaching, again, taking that, as I've alluded to already, it's not all about fixing problems. So at the bottom of the slide, actually loans and debt scored quite low in terms of the results that we saw. Whereas towards the top of that slide, improving their savings and investments, improving their ability to actually try and get on track and stay on track with their financial plans. Budgeting, pensions and retirement all came into that. That's not necessarily retiring, That is just getting better with my retirement plans. So it's interesting to us anyway that actually the natural assumption of it being fixing problems isn't necessarily the case when you're looking at financial coaching in the UK as it stands today. 10 minutes. Benefits of financial coaching. So yeah, absolutely. We also wanted to find out what people thought of it for obvious reasons. We wanted to ensure that it actually, creates outputs and also creates confidence in the marketplace. And on the left-hand side of the slide there, you can see it absolutely does. 92% of employees said they found it beneficial by accessing financial coaching. 37% felt more confident. 34% felt that they could manage their money better by sitting down on this structured, regular financial coaching series. 1 in 3 said it's actually helped us improve their savings plans. And that includes things like making the most of my company pension and my company benefits. So as an employer, that's an interesting one, and I'll come back to that one as well. Setting up a financial plan, feeling more positive about the future. One of the ancillary benefits of financial coaching, as is demonstrated, is the wider aspects of well-being. By getting a financial coach, by implementing those kind of ideas and signposts, actually showed that individuals felt less anxious about their money. They were less worried about their money because they felt that they were more in control. And obviously some said it actually improved their mental health. So we all know that there's a direct correlation, I'm assuming you do as well, between financial health and mental health. If we get our finances wrong, that obviously affects our mental health as well. But what financial coaching has shown us through the research is that can actually help to improve that. And on the right-hand side, for you as employers, absolutely, it's going to help to improve financial health of your employees, but also those other ancillary benefits, reducing that anxiety, improving mental health in the workplace, and with that, more confident and engaged employees, giving you more, giving you 100%, obviously, when they're at work. The last one there, which is the second bullet point up, again, goes back to that point. By having a financial coach, which we're coming on to, that understands your benefits, that enables them to raise awareness of those benefits, but also help them to make the most of those benefits in their own financial plans. One of those outputs, obviously, is that increased take-up of savings plans. So hopefully that all makes sense so far in terms of what it does, some of the people that used it, what they felt about it, for those that haven't used it, what they want from it. What about if they don't use it, if they don't take that financial guidance? And again, we asked those individuals, so what would you do if you didn't have access to some form of formal financial guidance or coaching? On the top of that slide, obviously, some very key risks. 53% would go and do it online. And as we know, online is the biggest swimming pool of financial scams out there. So you can fall through a lot of trapdoors doing it yourself. Some people obviously said they'd try and sort it themselves, and 34% on the right there would speak to family and friends. I don't know about you, but I'm sure you know someone in your family or friendship groups who thinks they know everything, and a little bit of knowledge can be a dangerous thing. So again, taking advice from somebody who's not qualified to do it, obviously, can for some serious problems as well. The most interesting ones for me, or the most scary ones for me, though, were the bottom right, 9 and 6. Don't know what I would do, or I'd do nothing. So that's still that concern. It would be my concern that individuals would keep their head below the parapet, they wouldn't tackle it, and they would just pretend and hope it would go away. And that obviously leads to even more problems, and that mental health piece that I mentioned already. So there are some key issues there, key risks, not having access to it. So what did employees want when if they were going to select a financial coach? What was it that they would want them to be? What would it be what they want them to do? And some really interesting statistics came out of this for us. 95% said that they want their coaches to understand their employee benefits. Absolutely. You would want them to be able to join the dots between what they get as an employee and actually what they can do with those benefits to improve their financial health. So they'd want their coach to understand their employee benefits, understandably. They'd want their coaches to be fully qualified advisors. Not every financial coaching proposition out there has to be, it's unregulated, as I said right at the start. You don't have to be a qualified financial advisor to deliver financial coaching. But employees are suggesting, 69% of them anyway are, that they'd want them to have some form of formal financial qualifications. Younger employees would want their coaches to be employed, not freelancers. Again, slightly lower score for all employees. 60% would want coaches to provide links to other resources. So where do I go after today to get extra help? Where are the tools and the case studies and the top tips and everything else that I can get to try and implement that for myself? 51% of younger employees said that they would want their coaches, would be prepared to have their coaches provide formal advice. Slightly less for the wider workforce. So they would be more than comfortable to have their coach be a qualified financial advisor, give them the information, the guidance and support, but if that had to flip forward to formal advice, they'd be more than happy to take that from that same individual because they'd built the credibility and trust, presumably. With the advent of AI, 1 in 2 employees would want an output. They'd want that to be recorded. They want an action plan so that they can take that away. It's tangible from their coach, from that series of coaching sessions, and be able to use that to implement change. And that's really, really important. Again, we found that not every financial coach out there does give that kind of support. And then lastly, they'd want their service to be available during working hours. Will probably come as no surprise to you. So they want to do it in your time. But again, some don't. So in conclusion then, with 4 minutes to go, so I'll try and get through this in a minute so there's some time for questions, but if not, do come to stand 21. Our research has shown us that financial coaching is still pretty poorly understood in the UK marketplace as it stands today, but obviously its impact is significant, as hopefully we've demonstrated. Our research has shown us that there is a clear case for tailored and structured one-to-one support and what it provides. For employees, obviously, it's a chance to build better long-term relationships with money, to be more comfortable and more confident with their finances. And for employers, it gives the chance to support employees in being better with their benefits, but also with their wider financial fitness. And then lastly, the additional gains in that kind of wider well-being aspect of physical, social, and mental health. There's clear benefits there by giving access to the kind of financial coach that can do that, but also raising awareness of your benefits. So if you'd like to come along to stand 21 and meet Fred and I, if you haven't already, and pick up a copy of the research, we'd love you to. New company, new merch, so you'll be able to take some free stuff away with you as well. There are other aspects of our research that we've done over the last 3 years that we can show you where you can download that as well. But ultimately, it's been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully, we've got just under 3 minutes for any questions that you may have.
Brilliant. Thanks, Marcus. There are a couple of questions in the Slido, and if anyone's got a question in the room, I can run over with the microphone as well. The first one is, you mentioned that obviously the coaches aren't qualified financial advisors.
Sure.
But what kind of qualifications might your coaches have?
We don't offer a financial coaching service, first and foremost, so it's a great question. We're here to do the research to actually understand what that roadmap might look like. And for obvious reasons, going to the market makes sense to do that first. But in terms of what qualifications we found would need to be what I would call level 4 and above. So they would have had to have passed a number of exams and be able to actually give financial advice. That's not to say that they actually do give financial advice, but they have to be at that level of qualification from what we've seen anyway to be able to deliver it. But again, it is unregulated, so they don't have to if they don't want to.
As a follow-on, could you see the industry going that way and that there being some form of regulation?
I would like to think so. Yeah, going back to that risk slide that I showed you, I think one of the reasons why things go wrong is if somebody has been, and no disrespect to the other providers that provide it, you want somebody to have experience at the coalface, actually delivering financial advice and supporting clients, supporting individuals with their finances. So certainly if I was taking financial coaching, I'd want that level of expertise, but that's not to say that will go that way, but I'd like to think it might do one day, yeah.
I thought, you mentioned it in your speech, but I thought that stat about how, seriously high earners, over £100,000, that's the top 5% of earners in the country, seeking coaching when they should probably be able to afford advice was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting.
And I thought that the next question here kind of plays to that about, does any of your research kind of indicate that people are a bit scared about engaging a coach or an advisor because maybe they don't feel like they have the capability to even ask the right questions?
Yes, I do. That's a great question. Yes, there is, in the raw data when we looked at it, the lower earners, we can't obviously attest for financial literacy of those individuals, but the lower earners, for one example, it's all about financial awareness. It's all about awareness of it. So I think that's where it's incumbent upon the employer to help employees to understand what that coach can do for you. I think that's the first and foremost step. Much like financial education, it's about providing somebody that can give an independent voice that can help them support their financial plan. So, yeah, it's a really great question. There is definitely an indication that there's that kind of head below the parapet. I don't want to be seen to not really understand. So therefore, I think that's going to be incumbent on the provider, but also the employer to try and raise awareness so that they take that. Yeah, for sure.
That's great. I think certainly in this environment, having that kind of understanding the role of the employer in the process is really important.
For sure.
So, but we are out of time. So thank you again for attending the session. If you could use Slido to rate the session, it really helps us to design better and more interesting conferences for you in the future. And just finally, thank you to Marcus for taking the time and his presentation today.
Really nice to see you. Thank you. Thank you.